Hi, I'm here with Cameron Bailey, co-director of the Toronto International Film Festival. Welcome to Red Carpet Diary.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your new post
Yes,
as co-director.
my first year as co-director.
And you were also a programmer with TIFF for 12 years. So
That's
can you
right.
tell me how those experiences have shaped your new position?
Sure. Yeah. I'd been writing about movies forever, since 1988, 20 years actually,
Okay.
and for a paper, Now Magazine in Toronto, and then doing stuff on the radio as well. And so I developed, I guess, the skills of watching movies, assessing them, trying to bring as much information to that as possible, as much knowledge as possible. And it's the same gig as a programmer, really, because you're watching movies, you're trying to assess them, trying to judge them, I suppose, as best you can based on what you know. And then the only difference is once you've made the selections of the films in the festival, then you actually become the advocate for those films as well.
Right.
You're the one who's presenting them to an audience. You're the one who's introducing them, because most of our films are premieres, so nobody's seen them before. The programmer makes that choice alone in a room, and you have to have the confidence of your convictions. You have to believe in your own taste. You know, we spend months, most of the rest of the year, actually watching movies, talking to filmmakers, talking to people who are bringing us these films and trying to make our selections. And you spend a lot of time on the business of it. But then actually when you're standing up in front of the audience and it's the premiere of that film and the filmmaker's by your side and the audience is just waiting to see what is going to be released upon them, then you remember why you're doing it. And you remember that it is for the love of film, and you have that passion that actually comes back to you all in a rush sometimes, and you realize this is actually something really special. It's a great job because you get a chance to introduce people to something that you hope is going to thrill them, excite them, inspire them in some way.
In terms of your rituals and actually watching the films, do you get popcorn? Do you watch the movie more than once? What do you do? You spend a lot of time in the dark.
Yeah, I've kind of sworn off popcorn because I've
Okay.
been doing this professionally for 20 years. It would be not a pretty sight, I think, if I was gorging on popcorn every time I saw a movie,
No
because I
popcorn.
see hundreds during the year. Rituals, yeah, I take notes as best I can while I'm watching a film. And it's something that sometimes sort of freaks people out. Like, why don't you just sink into the movie and let it wash over you? But you're there to do a job, you're doing it professionally. And so, yeah, I take notes as I'm watching a film. I like to be reminded of certain key scenes or key moments. I always sit on the aisle. Don't ask me why, but
I like the aisle too.
Do you really? I think it's just a thing, right? There's aisle people and middle people in
Yeah.
the world, and I'm an aisle person.
Okay.
That's all.
Do you ever see a movie more than once? Are you ever kind of humming and hawing and thinking, is this something that I connect to, or do you know right away?
Usually you know right away. Because we're watching films for premiere often, we're seeing them before they're done. We're sometimes watching them in the edit suite with the filmmaker. And so if you're watching it then, sometimes it's good to watch it a second time. And in some cases the film changes, the filmmaker cuts some, or they change certain scenes, or they change the focus a little bit, and then you do want to watch it a second time.
Have you ever fallen asleep?
You go to the Cannes Film Festival, for instance, you've just flown over from Toronto the day before, you get up, you land the same morning, and you go straight into screenings, and you're completely wiped out, you're completely jet-lagged, and yeah, you can sometimes find yourself nodding if it's a film that's not really working. But if a film's really working, it doesn't matter how tired you are, it still keeps you going.
Okay, you mentioned Cannes. What other festivals did you go to this year?
This year, I think I started in Sundance, went to the Berlin Film Festival as well, Cannes, of course, Mumbai. I love Mumbai. I really love going back to India. I've been doing the selection from India for years. The city is so alive and it's changing so fast, and there's just so much energy in the film industry in particular that it's just always exciting to be there.
How many people are actually involved in the selections, in making the selections?
There are 18 of us, which is actually unusual. A lot of festivals either began and sometimes stay the product of one person's taste. They have an executive director or an artistic director who ultimately makes all the decisions. From the very beginning, we've decided not to operate that way. Instead, what we do is we hire people whose tastes we trust, real experts in their field. People like Tom Powers, one of the leading documentary experts in the world, is our documentary programmer. Colin Geddes is our Midnight Madness programmer. He knows cult cinema, genre cinema, kung fu movies, action movies, zombie movies better than anybody. Diana Sanchez, our Latin American expert, who spends most of her year traveling throughout Latin America and also in Spain and Portugal. So these people are experts. We hire them to look after their particular territories. And then Piers Handling and myself, we do have ultimate responsibility for the whole selection, but we've got an incredible team that we would not be able to do this without.